Just like her Netflix show, just like her first podcast with Spotify, just like her most recent podcast, utterly backfired. Here's a headline about that. We haven't talked about this on the show, but she started a new podcast called Confessions of a Female Founder.
They decided to sell out their family to Netflix first, obviously, but Netflix did sort of a multi-deal with them, meaning that first they had to appear together, and then they each had to do their own projects. And you might not even know this.
Look at it. Oh my gosh, your style is so amazing. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite things. Meghan, look, I'm here to tell you, okay? Nobody gives a foo about your look, okay? The reviews have been universally awful. The Guardian said, "Kiss the Netflix deal goodbye. With love, Meghan is so pointless. It might be the Sussex's last TV show." The New Statesman, another lefty rag, said, "This isn't her house. Are these people her friends? Can she really cook or garden or do any of the things she coos about in With Love, Meghan?" I mean, even actual mothers are panning it. A woman on Mumsnet said it made her feel inferior and like a rubbish parent. The only thing Meghan was able to do was trash the royal family, and now she's dining out on that flipping royal title again.
I don't think anyone in the world knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box and loves it.
It's so funny, too, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. You have kids.
Brett Cooper took Meghan Markle to task so fiercely that she might need royal protection again. Honestly, the Duchess walked right into it with her latest podcast disaster.
Meghan Markle, because she also seems like she just cannot stop talking no matter what people tell her. Now, Meghan, just last week, this was probably my favorite story of the week, she did her first long-form sit-down podcast interview, and what do you know, guys? It backfired.
Meghan seems unable to stop talking, regardless of the advice she receives. Just last week, she conducted her first long-form sit-down podcast interview, and surprise, surprise, it backfired spectacularly.
I don't know how well it did, but for $100 million, it was like, we will sell out our family and we will each do our own individual projects. So Meghan Markle, people have been wondering what it is that she's going to do, because when she first did her Spotify...
Meghan Markle went from royal robes to podcast dreams, and the crash was harder than anyone anticipated. With millions invested, a shiny marketing push, and Meghan's star power on full display, her podcast should have been everywhere.
Likes the title Sussex is because it's a part of her love story. That's just her trying to justify why she wants us to refer to her as a duchess today.
Absolutely. Look, I don't think I'll be watching it, but I'll bring you on to tell us all about it once it...
Instead, it ghosted the charts faster than a bad Tinder date. 1 minute it was there, and the next, poof, gone. Not because people weren't aware of it. They listened and cringed. For a $100 million deal, it felt like a betrayal of her family, as they each pursued individual projects.
Basically, her interviewing her founder friends as she's on her founder journey for her new lifestyle brand. Everybody hates it. New York Post wrote, Meghan Markle's new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, hit with scathing reviews from critics. Quote, "It is stomach turning." And basically, there's nothing in that podcast that she's hosting that has anything of substance.
People have been speculating about Meghan's next moves since her Spotify debut, and then enter Brett Cooper, who wasted no time cutting through the fluff. Her reaction was brutal and honestly quite hilarious. She remarked that the entire podcast felt like Meghan was looking in a mirror, talking to herself while everyone else just sat there.
This is what she's come up with. It is a new show, and it is, I don't even remember what it's called. With Love, Meghan, I think it's called. With Love, Meghan. And essentially the series is about her inviting her friends and famous guests to a beautiful California estate, which is apparently...
You'd think a show about amplifying voices would allow someone else to speak, but nope. Meghan was front and center, explaining and oversharing, circling back to herself like the conversation was a boomerang. The title Sussex is part of her love story, and she seems to be justifying why she wants us to refer to her as a duchess today.
Substance, and yet she was crying, she was talking about full body chills the entire time. It was just a whole emotional thing, and people cannot stop making fun of it.
I don't plan on watching it, but I'll bring you on to discuss it once it airs. What should have been deep, honest storytelling turned into something oddly self-absorbed. Meghan wasn't having conversations. She was giving confessions, but not the raw emotional kind that draw you in.
But she's obsessed that she's growing it on an estate in a manner that we can't see because we're just the great unwashed who are tuning in to supposedly, just roil ourselves in envy and feeling like failures because we don't have mini scissors.
That's the goal.
To deploy with our huge...
Instead, they felt polished and rehearsed, with every anecdote conveniently tied back to her struggles, childhood, and pain. It stopped feeling real and started to resemble a brand campaign disguised as therapy, with Meghan interviewing her founder friends as she embarks on her own founder journey for her new lifestyle brand.
And she gardens and she hosts trips, so it's like, I guess now she's going to be Martha Stewart, and I just need you to sort of just watch a bit of this trailer so that you understand.
Critics have not held back. The New York Post described Meghan Markle's new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, as hitting with scathing reviews, calling it stomach-turning. There was nothing of substance in the podcast. Instead of building trust, she constructed a wall of perfectly packaged vulnerability, and listeners felt it.
Still favorite moments from that interview were where she was talking about her relationship with Harry, and they call each other H and M, and it's all like this cute thing, and she was like, oh, H, that man, he just loves me so much. She gave this entire...
They didn't walk away inspired. They rolled their eyes. After a while, it wasn't about the guests or the topics. It was just Meghan, again and again, trying to prove something no one had even asked her to. This new show, With Love Meghan, features her inviting friends and famous guests to a beautiful California estate.
What publicist was like, that quote's a go. It's interesting because it feels like, and in the show too, she's going out of her way to not be controversial, to not say anything that could be, could turn into clickbait or a headline.
Then came the royal cherry on top. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, boldly stamped onto a gift basket in the podcast's promotional rollout. At first glance, it seemed innocent enough, but for anyone keeping up with the soap opera formerly known as Megxit, that detail hit differently. While Meghan was crying and talking about full-body chills, it felt like a whole emotional performance.
About how much Harry loves her and how amazing their family is, she did not make one comment about how much she loves her husband, or what she does for him, or what she contributes to their family. It was just like, he is so obsessed with her.
Remember when Meghan and Harry made their dramatic royal exit? One of the conditions was crystal clear. No more using those HR titles for anything remotely commercial. Yet here it was, front and centre, almost as if Meghan forgot or simply didn't care. She seemed obsessed with showcasing her life on an estate.
I didn't think it was going to be a life skill I would take into middle age. And then she's saying, this is a no fuss. She literally says, Meghan, this is a no fuss menu.
Oh,
it's
right.
within the reach of anybody.
As if we, the great unwashed, were tuning in to bask in envy and feel like failures for not having the same lifestyle. Brett Cooper didn't miss a beat, joking that it was either a royal oopsie or a royal ego trip, leaning hard into the latter. How do you publicly walk away from the monarchy, build your brand around freedom, and then sneak that title back in like a cheat day? It's as if she's trying to become the next Martha Stewart.
Very, very odd, and everybody caught on to that. She also talks about parenting their two children and basically insinuates that she is the first woman to ever have to balance having a career and making it.
To the public, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt deliberate and calculated, like a subtle flex from someone who claimed to want out, but perhaps never really let go. One of my favourite moments from that interview was when she discussed her relationship with Harry, referring to him as that man. It left a sour taste, especially among the same royal watchers Meghan once begged for empathy from.
Your kids off to daycare and first grade. It's really not that big of a deal. And then, of course, the real crux of the interview was about her new brand As Ever, which is driven by her love of hosting and hospitality, which also took up a big portion of the interview. And in that conversation, now we're getting to my favorite part of this entire story.
You can't burn the crown one day and then wrap your podcast gift baskets in it the next. People noticed, and not in the way she would have wanted. Then came the moment that launched 1,000 memes, the alleged crying. During one of Meghan's heartfelt stories about her hardships, her voice quivered, and she paused for effect.
And if you go back and look at them, they're voiced over.
Really?
She clearly was told after the fact, you know, it might be nice if we kind of had you track, like a question to Daniel about himself, to set up that comment he made. And it's all voiceover. Anything she asks of the guest was laid in after the fact. You can see it.
Creating a perfect storm of drama as if tears were about to fall. But no tears came. Not even a glistening one. She didn't make a single comment about how much she loves her husband or what she contributes to their family. It was just about how obsessed he is with her. Brett Cooper didn't let that slide, nor did the internet.
I mean, you know, all the money that's being thrown at this influencing image of hers. Now we're learning to put your Chinese takeout on a plate. Is this for real?
She called out the moment for what it was, a textbook case of performative emotion. The whole thing screamed more acting class than authentic confession. Cooper wasn't the only one who noticed. Many viewers felt the same way. Meghan's comments about parenting their 2 children insinuated that she was the first woman to ever balance a career and motherhood.
Dropping your kids off to daycare and first grade, it's really not that big of a deal. And then, of course, the real crux of the interview was about her new brand, As Ever, which is driven by her love of hosting and hospitality, which also took up a big portion of the interview. And in that conversation, now we're getting to my favorite part of this entire story.
The critique didn't stop there. Body language experts jumped into the fray, dissecting her every move. They pointed out that Meghan's expressions didn't match the emotions she was supposedly feeling. Her lips quivered, but her eyes stayed dry, and her body language gave off more of a scripted vibe than a woman experiencing real pain.
Get out. Uncle, make it end. Make it end. What is this? Guys, I feel like I'm a very accepting person. Truly, I want to like something about her. I'm searching for something to like about her. And it's so hard because she suffers from such a rare disorder of being unable to just be a...
Instead of evoking sympathy, her performance made audiences feel awkward, as if they were witnessing a staged act, rather than an intimate moment of vulnerability. The more Meghan leaned into her raw emotions, the more the act began to unravel. It wasn't just a moment, it was a glaring sign that what was supposed to be her personal podcast was starting to feel more like a carefully crafted product.
However, she showed a basket that she had sent to the host of the podcast as a thank you for allowing her to come on, which sparked a whole other media firestorm. Now, I want you to look at this. She sent a little basket, and here you can kind of zoom in here, and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. Guys, this is...
leaving listeners with an uncomfortable taste of inauthenticity. In the midst of one of her meandering monologues, Meghan casually referred to Prince Harry not as her husband, partner, or even by name, but simply as that man. This comment, along with her discussion about her new brand driven by her love of hosting and hospitality, took up a significant portion of the interview.
Other women who are listening to this podcast can totally relate. When I have my girlfriends over and we're cooking, all of us are in full glam. And we're like, it's not about perfection, but then you look at what we've made and it's literally perfect. In fact, just when I make a cake, it looks just like that with my girlfriends. I look perfect, they look perfect, the cake looks perfect, but we say it's not about perfection.
The phrase dropped like a lead balloon. No affection, no familiarity, just a sterile label as if she were discussing a delivery guy who forgot her almond milk, not the father of her children. People noticed, and the contrast was jarring. Critics and royal watchers alike began to question whether this was a subtle jab, a PR move to signal independence, or simply a Freudian slip.
Something that I found online. This is not something that was AI'd or photoshopped. This screenshot is from the podcast interview that was uploaded on YouTube. And of course, you might be looking at this photo and saying, Brett, why is this even relevant? It is a gift basket with a card.
Regardless, it didn't sound like love. It sounded detached and wrapped in scripted notes. In a podcast already struggling to feel real, this moment sealed the vibe, transforming it into a performance rather than a genuine conversation. Sources close to the production began spilling tea, revealing that interviews were pre-scripted, talking points were tightly controlled, and even the guests were briefed on what Meghan planned to say before they sat down to record. So much for authenticity. In one episode, Meghan presented a gift basket to the host as a thank you for allowing her to come on, which sparked a media firestorm. The basket bore the inscription, "With the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex."
That nobody that I know watched Suits, okay, who took her clothes off, was not even a main role, okay, was doing sex scenes, to becoming Martha Stewart in 3 years. Like, this is totally authentic. Because I know other women who are listening to this podcast can totally relate. When I have my girlfriends over and we're cooking, all of us are in full glam. And we're like, it's not about perfection. But then you look at what we've made and it's literally perfect. In fact, just when I make a cake, it looks just like that with my girlfriends. I look perfect. They look perfect. The cake looks perfect. But we say it's not about perfection. Really? Because I feel like it maybe is precisely about perfection.
It didn't take long for Brett Cooper to swoop in with a savage jab, calling the whole thing an improv show with cue cards. The podcast started to feel less like a safe space for honest dialogue and more like a high-budget stage play where Meghan starred as both director and lead actress. What was marketed as raw and real now reeked of rehearsals and red lines.
Skipping through with honey and bees, like who are you trying to be? And I just want to know who's around her, because I feel like she needs Taylor Swift's marketing team, okay? Love her, hate her, think she's a fraud, whatever you want to say about Taylor Swift, she has had a brilliant marketing team behind her, okay? Why can't she just lend that marketing team to Meghan Markle? Why can't she?
The curated vulnerability, the timed laughter, and the voice dips meant to signal emotion all lost their power once the public realised it was choreographed down to the syllable. Audiences may have initially tuned in out of curiosity, but they quickly realised it wasn't what they expected. The shine wore off fast, and they were not passive listeners. They were engaged individuals actively choosing to leave.
Not allowed to use. And this also comes on the heels of her and Harry facing a ton of scrutiny over the fact that they just used Duke and Duchess of Sussex, when really they're not even supposed to be doing that, but they use it in all of their promotion and the creation of As Ever and their production company. And so now...
Social media erupted with brutal reviews, many using the same keywords. Painfully boring, emotionally manipulative, and one long PR ad for Meghan Markle. As the podcast drama unfolded, it became clear that Meghan Markle's public image was not just about a single project tanking. It was about a larger unraveling narrative. Critics pointed to a disturbing pattern, a calculated use of emotion to curry sympathy, gain media traction, and control the narrative. Her now infamous appearance on the Jaime Kern-Lima show was a lightning rod for backlash. What should have been a vulnerable, empowering interview instead triggered widespread criticism.
Husband watching this show and cheering you on.
Yeah, right.
Your big launch.
Right.
Like you're
He's
gonna
not doing
have
anything
to
else.
relay this to him.
Right.
Is he? I don't know. Is he playing Minecraft?
She's constantly on this show with my husband. You know, it drives me nuts. My husband. Honestly, like I almost never refer to Doug like that. I don't know. It's like, well, my husband. It's like Doug, but she thinks like. It's not cool to say Harry because it looks like she's going to be showing off. That's how a normal wife sounds.
Right.
A normal partner would say, hey, Harry thinks this.
Right.
No one would find.
Viewers quickly pointed out how her tears didn't feel earned. They felt rehearsed. Her emotional pauses were too perfectly timed, and the inflection in her voice was too precise. Brett Cooper's savage takedown wasn't just hilarious. It hit a nerve because it exposed the heart of the problem. When image takes the spotlight, substance gets shoved backstage. Meghan's podcast may have been slick and polished, but it was missing the one thing listeners crave most: realness. As the world watches this royal saga unfold, the question remains: can Meghan Markle turn this royal train wreck into a comeback story, or will she continue to struggle under the weight of her own contradictions? The narrative is still being written, and the outcome remains uncertain.